Welcome to the Grinders Table, the podcast where we sit with C-suite executives and founders who are taking their industry by storm to figure out how you can build an exceptional career and business. Together, we'll try to uncover how they are both defying the odds and what you can learn from their experience. Our guest today is redefining what's possible in African venture from her base in Dakar, Senegal. As a mother of two and a key member of the Partech team in Africa, she's breaking ground on how we invest in African businesses and also what it takes to actually build a sustainable and impactful organization on the continent. But before I continue waxing lyrical about her, I'll let her introduce herself. So Sabrine, over to you.
Hello, thanks a lot, Wem, for having me here today. So my name is Sabrine. I'm a senior associate at Partech Africa. It's the Africa fund of Partech Partners, a global venture capital firm. For the background, I was born and raised in Dakar, so I'm originally Lebanese. And at 17, I left Dakar to pursue my studies in Paris, where I attended a university known for a finance master called Paris Dauphine. And I've been with Partech Africa for about 5 years and a half now. It's been an exciting journey so far. So before that, I was primarily working in Europe before joining Partech. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, amazing. And most people, well, let me not generalize here, but a lot of people, actually, and interestingly, I wrote a short LinkedIn post about, the African diaspora. We move out of the continent, we study outside the continent. Most people then find jobs and don't return. What brought you back to Senegal?
It's a very interesting story. I always thought my path was to stay in France, to work there. It's from the outside, like indeed, when you leave Africa to study in France, it looks crazy to come back, right? So I always thought I would have a career in investment banking. Actually, after graduation, I landed an incredible opportunity with Dutch Bank in London. One of those dream jobs for fresh graduate, well-paid, prestigious, promising. But life has its twist, and I needed to return to Senegal to sort out paperwork for my UK work visa. And around that time, funny enough, Partech released PR announcing the opening of their Dakar office. Attention, like venture capital in Dakar. It sounded completely unexpected. So out of curiosity, I reached out to someone at Partech on LinkedIn. I made very clear that I wasn't job hunting. I just wanted to learn more about the rationale of having a well-known VC fund opening in Dakar. So one conversation led to another, and eventually I found myself in an interview process without really wanting it at the beginning. So on my side, I also felt that, at the beginning I wanted to stay in Europe, and then I found this amazing opportunity to go back home and work for an impactful organization that had everything I liked. So that's how for me I ended up being in Dakar.
Wow, I also like the part where you actually are the one that took the first step. You reached out. I find that as with everybody that is trying to make an impact in life, you don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Sometimes you're just the one reaching out of curiosity or reaching out to sort of help or create impact, which is really, really good. Now, your background was sort of in MA, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in VC. What was that change like?
To be honest, I knew nothing about venture capital before joining Partech. Like literally nothing. I had to Google venture capital online. I think that it was unexpected, but indeed transitioning into venture capital was both exciting and intimidating, especially since I came from a very different world. In investment banking, everything is super structured, transactional, but in VC, it's much more fluid and I would say relationship driven. So I think what helped me the most was to stay curious and humble. I was upfront about what I didn't know, and my colleagues were very supportive. I leveraged my strengths very early on, which are building relationships, sourcing companies, analyzing fundamentals of a company. And over time, I grew in being more confident, but I literally grew with Partech. As I told you, I joined 5 years and a half ago. It's a long time.
Yeah, and truly, I believe that for a lot of people that found their way into venture and even find their way into new industries, this is the same story. You join, you absolutely have no idea of what you're doing, and sometimes you have that imposter syndrome, right? Have you had to deal with imposter syndrome, getting into rooms where you know it, but you just feel like you don't know enough?
Yes. Oh, yes. It was the case. I would say at least my first 3 year at Partech. So also it was a job that everyone wanted, like, how in VC you don't have many slots available, right? It's very small teams. You really need an amazing opportunity to join one of the teams, especially in Africa. We don't have that many VCs that are hiring. So I felt that at some point, everyone wanted my job. And I felt that as I knew nothing about venture capital, that it wasn't on me to accomplish that. So yeah, I think it's a pretty common syndrome. That's what I realized, especially in high pressure field like venture capital. And yeah, I learned how to separate my emotion and make sure that, I'm focusing on improving and I'm embracing mistakes. I figured out that nobody was perfect and no one expects you to be perfect. Mistakes are always learning opportunities and not proof of incompetence. So instead of fearing failure, I accepted that it was part of my growth process.
Yeah, failure doesn't always show incompetence. I need to write that down. That was really, really good. So when did you become a mother in relation to your VC career? Was it before or during? And how did that timing influence your journey?
It's funny that you ask that because last time a woman in VC told me that I make it seem too easy to be a mom and doing VC at the same time. And I can guarantee you it's definitely not easy. So I became a mom my second year at Partech. A first-time mom my second year at Partech. And I had my second kid 1 year ago. So he's just 1 year old. I would say I had to adjust a lot. The transition wasn't easy. There is no one-size-fits-all formula for balancing family life and the fast-paced world of venture capital. It took a lot of trial, finding my rhythm, adjusting expectations. But at the end of the day, it's about managing priorities and learning to be okay with imperfect days as well. So I realized I couldn't do everything at the same time. And that's okay. I focus on being fully present, whether I'm at work or with my family. And another key element has been leaning to finding my support system, both at home and at work. I'm fortunate to have a partner who shares responsibilities, supportive families that can help, especially when I'm traveling for work, as well as a team at Partech that values collaboration and flexibilities. It's important to work in an environment that doesn't see parenthood as a limitation, but as part of what shapes you as a person. Personally, I believe that becoming a mom has made me a better investor. It helped me with my sense of empathy, my patience, my long-term view as well. So yeah, not an easy journey. You have to let go of that guilt. You have to trust the process. You have to remember that it's okay to take time for your career as well when you're a mom. So yeah, it's a whole process.
You mentioned having a supportive partner, and honestly, it's almost the same way as when you're leading a startup where you need a supportive team or a supportive co-founder. But has motherhood sort of changed your perspective on leadership, especially when it comes to startups?
Yes. To be honest, I feel like I started being like, so how? I feel like I started to lead deals better in the way I was taking responsibility on those deals, you know? I feel like when I started being a mom, I started having a lot of responsibility. And, you know, you start developing decision making that involve making tough decisions. So yeah, it really helps with that when investing in startups, and also everything related to time management, you know, juggling between motherhood and other responsibility required strong time management. And in my everyday work, this is a very important skill, you know. Like, you're here looking at so many startups at the same time. I'm sure you know, when in our jobs we receive thousands of opportunities every year that we have to process. So now I felt that when I became a mom, I became better at managing my time and allocating time on what was more meaningful. So yeah, it helps.
Yeah, interestingly, you've mentioned time management severally. And I know this sounds like a cliche question, but I have to bring up work-life balance because it's all about, you know, prioritizing and managing your time. How have you approached this? And can there ever be a work-life balance?
I think it can, if you have a supporting team that can that understand what it takes, you know. It depends how the environment of the team you work with. It's very challenging. It's intense work. But if your team is supportive enough to understand what it takes, they can give you flexibility to manage your work-life balance. For instance, in my case, what I try to do is to be very productive during the day. Then when it's time to stay with the kids from like 6 p.m. up to 8 p.m., everyone in my team knows that I'm not available in this slot. So they would either try before to catch me, or they know that I can be flexible after bedtime, so they can reach out to me just after. So yeah, it's not easy, but you need the support and you need to be in an environment that can help you thrive while being a mom. For instance, if I were doing this in London, working in M&A, I'm not sure I would have the same pitch here.
All African founders, well, a lot of African founders know Partech, and Partech has been at the forefront of some of the biggest and most impactful deals on the continent. As somebody that drives deal making at Partech, how do you see the African market, and how do you assess opportunities, and what makes you see an idea or a founder say, yes, that's the founder I want to back?
That's a good question. And every day we try to improve ourselves in how we assess those companies. I think it involves a strategic approach. At Partech, in our team, what we try to do is really look at several factors. The first one, obviously, is the team. What we think about the team, what's our fit with the team? Do we think they are A-plus founders that can make it to a $1 billion exit opportunity? Do we think that they know they have the relevant background to go after what they are building? So there is a strong component on the team that we spend a lot of time assessing first. Then it's the market. So obviously, we want to see the opportunity to build those unicorns, right? In order to do so, we have to invest in big markets, so $1 billion plus markets in Africa. So it requires a lot of work in terms of market sizing, competition landscape, research to make sure we get everything in this market and to make sure that the company can thrive in this market. Then we assess the model, looking at what makes it special, what do they have that others do not have, what's the barrier to entry here, and what's the go-to-market strategy that makes it special. So you understand how we look at what's outstanding in this company. And last but not least, we look at the momentum. So everything related to like traction, the growth perspective of the company, how have they performed historically, and what's their ambitions for the coming years. So this is, I would say, our strategic review of the company. But what we're looking for is really what makes them stand apart. Are they building those extraordinary companies that we want to back in Africa? I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And talking about backing extraordinary founders, I do experience, and I know you experience this a lot. You go out for events or you go anywhere, and founders are either giving you their business card or are trying to pitch on the go, and sometimes it gets a lot, it becomes too much. Do you have any advice on how founders can go about making a good impression to investors?
That's interesting, you know. So the first advice I would give here is on who to contact. You know, quite often founders think they have to speak to a partner, that, you know, they have to reach out directly to, you know, the partner of the fund in order to get through. Actually, this is not true because the partner will not have time to review all the opportunities, and what they will do is forward the opportunity to us and let us lead the conversation. So, you know, in this process, you might lose a bit of time while reaching out to the analyst, the associate of the firm can be much more productive. Like you have more chances to enter the process. And when reaching out, this is a second advice I would give. Make sure that, you know, you share a clean pitch, you share an interesting fact about your company when sending the email or the LinkedIn message or whatever. So make sure that you're sending information that will be attractive. And yeah, I would say, you know, it's on the way you communicate with investors first. And then once we engage, we value a lot communication with investors, with the founders. We try to make sure that, you know, we're being cautious of their time, that everything we're asking is something that we actually need. You know, if I'm asking you, I don't know, for your last year cohort, it's not to bother you. It's because in my analysis, in the case I'm building, it's one of the questions that I have. So I need this data point to complete my review. So make sure that, you know, you complete the data requests that are being asked from investors so they can also easily communicate to their IC. They can build a proper analysis that makes sense.
What motivates you every morning when you wake up? What's that thing that drives you out of bed?
So I would say I'm usually very excited when I speak to founders. So during my week, I have at least 10 conversations with founders, especially when it's new companies I haven't met before. I'm always very excited to meet a new person, solving a complex problem, fostering growth. I find fulfillment in speaking to founders about the business that they are launching. Then ultimately, when I find the one I want to back and I want to support, I find it pretty interesting and motivating to have this purpose. You know, I want this company to succeed. So I will do my best to help them, to support them on their way to success.
This is by no way saying that we all have the best advice, but have you been in situations where you see something really clearly, you tell the founder, you tell the founding team that, hey, where you're going, the direction you're going is wrong, or you should be changing this, and they totally ignore you. How do you, do you manage that kind of interaction?
It happens almost every day. As founder, it's tough to think that, the investor who gave you money can also give you advice. I feel like it requires a lot from an investor to, tell a founder what to do, especially when it's on an operational subject. Usually on fundraising process, they listen because they know it's your field and you can advise them. But on everything related to more expertise or strategic discussion, it's sometimes tough, but we're not here to run the business, right? We're here to provide valuable insights, to open doors, to help them navigate through tough decisions. So I like when founders embrace constructive feedbacks. So it helps the discussions, Most of the time, they can push back at the beginning, and then you keep pushing to make them understand that this is not the right decision. And usually they come back to you, sometimes too late, to tell you were right.
Have you ever been in a situation where you loved an idea or loved the business or loved what the founder is building so much, but you could not get buy-in from the rest of the team or the rest of the partners?
This also happens a lot, to be honest. And it's a collective decision at some point because, might love a company. Actually, the toughest part of our process is to convince the other team member. Once you convince your team about an opportunity to pursue, it's a done deal. We can go to IC, we can send the term sheet, we can wire the money right now. But they will always push back in purpose to make sure that you're sure about what you're doing and you know why you like the company. So it's not only about the founder, but, it's also a huge market. They have the needed fundamentals to succeed. So the team will always push back, and sometimes they push harder than other time. But we, as a team, we feel like it's a needed process. And if at some point drop it and I say, okay, I have no more argument, you're right, we shouldn't pursue this conversation with the founder, it means that they pushed me and I had no more argument to sell, right? So it's a needed process. It can be annoying sometimes because sometimes you just have a crush on the company and you just know it's the one, but you need to break down all the different components of the company and convince your team. So it depends on the stage of the company, but usually this is how it is run internally.
This is actually very good advice because I think that as everyone grows in their career, whether you're a founder, whether you're an investor, whether you're in corporate, there's that skill of learning to manage up and manage down. And, managing those above you it can be very tricky. And you just have to learn, the skills and the tacts to do that and, argue with data somewhat. Now, let's talk about Francophone Africa. There's now this huge attention on the Francophone market. Initially, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there was so much money poured into, English-speaking Sub-Saharan Africa and then North Africa. And then with the rise of Wave and many other companies in Francophone Africa, Senegal, from Cote d'Ivoire and the likes, more attention has been placed in that region. What advice do you have for investors looking to invest in Francophone Africa or founders looking to build in the Francophone African market? What advice do you have for them?
Interesting question. I am a strong believer in this region, as you can imagine. And I always try my best to make investors looking more at this region. So interesting enough, Senegal is a relatively small market with a population around 17 million compared to Nigeria's massive 200 plus million. It's a first difference of scale that makes it harder for a startup to achieve the same level of growth and traction that they might have in larger markets like Nigeria or Kenya. What surprised me when I started investing in this region is how startups in Senegal and in Francophone Africa approach this limitation. Founders often build with a regional mindset, and they target not only Senegal, for instance, but also the broader WAMU region. So it's the West Africa Economic and Monetary Union that comprise over 130 million people. And it's very strategic because it allows you as a founder to scale across borders more seamlessly with countries that share the same language, the same currency, the franc CFA, and the same regulatory frameworks. So this helps for investors who are looking into the country to know that there's a path to geographic expansion that is feasible and not impossible, like in other regions of Africa. I find it pretty inspiring, especially when you look at the pace at which the ecosystem is maturing. We see that even the government has become very supportive for startups in Senegal. And actually, I think that the success of Wave in the Senegalese ecosystem, as you mentioned, has been a transformative story. It has demonstrated the immense potential of building a tech-driven, a user-centric solution tailored for local needs. Literally a revolution the mobile money landscape in Senegal. And it was a true catalyst for the ecosystem. After Wave rapid growth and unicorn status put Senegal on the map, it inspired other entrepreneurs in the region and really boosted the investor confidence in the Senegalese market potential. So I feel like we now have the needed fundamentals, and investors and even founders are looking at us in Senegal. Founders from other countries, if you look at their deck, they will always tell you how they will expand to Senegal or Côte d'Ivoire because it's a stable country in terms of currency. It's a dream in a country like Nigeria, for instance. So it's interesting to see how out there now we see more and more VCs, Lunch Africa included. I know you guys spent some time in Senegal and you invested in quite a few Senegalese startups. But all VC as well has been Francophone Africa for a long time, both for direct investment, but also for expansion for their existing portfolio companies. And I find this quite interesting. And I'm sure that we will see much more of that this coming year.
Thank you so much. You've all been listening to Sabrine Chahrour of Partech. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Almost.
We're going to go into a rapid, fire round question where I just ask you, very short questions and you give me very quick, short answers. Drum roll. Let's begin. What is the best speech you've ever received?
Wow, best speech I ever received. It was Nawi, a prop tech company in Egypt.
It's interesting that I wasn't even in Senegal, I was in Egypt. What is the most valuable skill for an African VC?
I would say as an African VC, you really need to be open-minded about the different sectors you're looking at.
Next question would be, what do you think the next big trend will be in African tech?
So I would love to give you like an answer that is not fintech, but it will still be fintech for a long time.
I'm even shocked if you say AI. Next question, what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Just keep going. Trust the process.
Trust the process. And then final question would be, well, what is the dream exit scenario for any African founder?
I I think that any exit scenario is a dream scenario. Like any exit, I just take it, whether it's acquisition from a corporate, acquisition from consolidation with other global tech companies, IPOs, anything. We're aligned. Just exit your company.
Yeah, true. It's not about the form. It's about the action. Just exit and provide returns for the investors. Okay, thank you, Sabrine, for speaking with us. We typically round off the conversation with this question. So I would like you to rank these 4 things I'm going to mention to you: power, fame, money, and pleasure. Which is most important to you and which is the least important to you?
Power, fame, money, and pleasure.
Yeah.
So I would rank pleasure first. I feel like it's important to like what it's all about enjoying what you're working on and making sure that, you're just also having fun. I would rank power in the second position. It's about leadership and control in both personal and professional life. Then, of course, money is an important component. It's significant. It's a tool to achieve the bigger roles. And last, fame, I would say, even if it also means that, so it's also like strong personal brand, but it's not that important to me, to be honest.
Thank you, Sabrine. This was such a wholesome conversation. Really enjoyed it, and thank you for spending time with us.
Thanks a lot, Wem, for having me. It was really a pleasure. It was an amazing conversation, so thank you. Goodbye, Wem.
This has been the Grinders Table podcast, bringing you unfiltered insights from Africa's most compelling founders and business leaders. If you had found value in today's conversations, here's how you can help us amplify these stories. Take 30 seconds to share this episode with someone in your network who's building, investing, or curious about Africa. You'll be amazed at how many life-changing connections start from a single shared conversation. And if you're feeling generous, a quick rating and review goes a long way. It helps more founders and business leaders discover these powerful insights. Until next week, keep grinding.